So there's something interesting in the influence world, whether that's in leadership or sales. Um, for some reason, almost all of our tools on how to sell to people or to influence them are conscious mind approaches that we're going to give you the features and benefits of this, which is a conscious mind approach. And it's interesting because decision making itself is an unconscious process. So we're in a position here where decision making, including all purchasing, is made unconsciously. And most influencers, and I would argue this is why most influencers have the percentage of success that they do, where it's like 2 out of 10 or whatever it is. You're selling to the conscious mind. You're selling to the last part of the brain that actually gets to make the decision. And this is what sets NLP apart. NLP is much more interested in how do we influence the unconscious, right? So how do we influence the unconscious? We do it 3 ways, okay? The NLP influence model is really for sales and persuasion, but this overlaps into coaching and leadership as well. It's really about criteria and values as the heartbeat of influence. That criteria are your beliefs about what's most important. Now, in a sales context, this is beliefs about what's most important in buying that thing, right? If I'm looking for a house, what's most important to me in that house? That belief in particular, or those set of beliefs in particular, are the heartbeat of that person's buying process. Those beliefs remember, any belief that you have creates perceptual filters through which you tune out information. And this is where we get into negotiations where it feels like we're butting up against, we're trying to convince someone of something. It's because we're coming up against their perceptual filters. I've used this example many times, right? But there's that classic study where they take people who have the belief that they're lucky, the people who believe they're unlucky, and they send them both into a room, and there's cash on the ground waiting for them. The lucky group has a set of perceptual filters that is open to lucky feedback from the environment. Over 80% see the cash on the floor, pick it up, put it in their pocket. The unlucky group was less than 12%. Quite literally, your beliefs create filters that will tune out data that doesn't match the filter. So when somebody has a buying belief, right, their criteria for making that decision, anything that doesn't match that criteria gets excluded from the realm of possibility for them. Without acknowledging and utilizing somebody's criteria in the sales process, you have just created a big freaking wall between you and their subconscious decision-making process. And honestly, it's a wall that's gonna fight you. It's gonna come out with spikes and start poking you. People don't like to have their beliefs violated. They don't like it. So we have to know what those beliefs are. Now, when you speak and you present to those beliefs, oh my God, right? It's like the trumpets, the heavens part, the trumpets, the balloons, the fireworks. You will see, I have a video coming up. Actually, I'll cut it into this video where I list off someone's criteria and values. Watch the state that she goes into just by having those beliefs fed back to her. When you do this, you essentially get access to the person's unconscious. They go into amazing states, right? We want them to feel good about what they're buying. So you have to package your product, service, etc. inside of their criteria and values. So in this clip, I'm going to mismatch first her criteria and values. She already told me what they were. She likes to have the different views on a topic. She likes to know the facts and figures, and she likes for the speaker to be enthusiastic. So I'm going to start by mismatching those criteria and pay attention to her body language. And you'll notice she becomes more and more frustrated as I mismatch her criteria. And then when I start to match her criteria, notice how she lights up. Those are buying signals. Hey, I got this great seminar.
Okay.
We're going to go super focused on one point of view. Okay? And what's great about it is there's none of that dull facts and figures. It's basically just the emotional side of it. There's no charts, none of that stuff is going to bore you to tears. Okay? And then, what's really nice is the speaker is very serious. He's not one of those like, those speakers who are like, he's very just kind of like, to the point, matter of fact. It's like a business meeting, basically, right? Okay. So that's a positive buying signal. Not.
You took everything that I said and just.
I know. But what I can do now, let's pretend that's a seminar.
Right?
Yeah. And I can say those things and be like, some people would say you should sign up for that seminar. Yeah. So you said yes, right?
But like a.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if we go on the flip side.
Right.
The flip side of the coin, right?
Yes.
I know about a seminar.
Yes.
Okay? Where they're not just going to give you one piece of information. They're going to give you the full range on it. Okay? They have all the facts and figures to back it up. And the speaker is totally enthusiastic, right? Now, if it's me, I'm thinking that we should get you a pamphlet for this. What do you think?
Yes, please.
100%.
Yes,
and
please.
The difference, right, when you meet that person's criteria and values, you will have a customer for life. You will have somebody that sends you referrals. And when you watch the video and you look at the state that person goes into, you'll know why. Because it's like the music of their soul, when you match those things. So that's criteria, the beliefs. The values are the states that they get to feel inside that they most desire or they most move away from in life, right? So if you think of the old carrot and the stick idea, well, our carrots are unique to us, right? Your carrot is different than my carrot. Same with the stick. There's a lot of overlap, but let's say I want to buy a house. There's a very specific internal experience that I'm looking for from this home. And there are certain things, oftentimes people make buying decisions because they're moving away from a negative state. We want to position everything we do to those beliefs and to those core desired experiences. Okay? If you do that, this is the heartbeat. This is the 20% that is the 80% of influencing with NLP. Eliciting and utilizing somebody's criteria and values effectively. What else do we do though? Because it gets better. We also, remember I said that decision strategy is a subconscious behavior. Happens unconsciously. Well, just because something's unconscious doesn't mean we can bring it into consciousness, right? So if right now you're not conscious of the feeling in your right pinky toe. Now, if I ask you to feel your right pinky toe, that brings it into consciousness. And so we do this with their decision strategy, where we ask them questions to figure out what their decision-making process is, and we run them through it. Again, we're taking our presentation and packaging it inside their process for making decisions. So we then trigger that strategy. We trigger that decision-making on purpose. Really powerful stuff. We also, in NLP, know that people buy based on the state they're in. We can elicit states that are appropriate for that person. And by the way, if you're doing the criteria and values and the decision strategies, you're going to get those states anyway, right? But we can elicit buying states individually, independent of that, and attach those states to the decisions of making a purchase. Now, that's the high-level overview, right? What are the tools for making this happen? 1, rapport, right? I can't tell you, pause, I need a drink. I can't tell you how many people who are quote unquote practitioners of NLP, master, I know trainers, big names, who quite frankly suck at rapport. And maybe because it's not a sexy technique in the beginning, I agree with you, it's not. It wasn't what I was most interested to learn. But you have to understand, all of the stuff that we want to do in communication exists within the frame of rapport. That rapport is that responsiveness between people. So if you're going to be able to get some, especially with things like anchoring, which I'll talk about shortly, if you're going to be able to do these things, you have to have a responsiveness between you and the other person. I had a teacher who used to say, if you're not in rapport, you're at war. Rapport, rapport, rapport. It's mission critical that you are maintaining rapport and able to lead it in a sales interaction. And to be able to do it quickly. Elicitation, right? So, elicitation is the ability to gather those things that we talked about. Elicitation means, can I get their criteria and their values? Can I get their decision-making process? Can I get the state that they're going to need to be in, right? Elicitation. Once you're able to do that, we have anchoring. Anchoring is if you've elicited a response, can you then get it back by attaching an anchor to it, right? Anchoring is somebody goes into a state, you do something specific as they go into that state, and then those two things become paired, right? So that if the client says a certain value or criteria, and I get them to experience the criteria or value, I can then get that state back by anchoring it with a specific gesture or a specific voice tone. And this becomes really powerful, because then you can then attach that state to your product or service. Very, very powerful. Objection handling, right? Richard Bandler, the co-creator of NLP, teaches inoculation, that inoculating up front against objections. This is called pre-framing the objection. This is something that we do. If you're doing this well, typically you won't get them. If you're listing their criteria, values, all that stuff, you typically won't get objections. However, when you do, we use reframing to reframe. Very, very powerful stuff. I think people underestimate the importance of, when learning NLP, for whatever the context is, to treat it like a skill. You're learning a skill, you know, and the skills work together. And it's the NLP, the programming metaphor, is a metaphor. People are not computers to be programmed. It's a metaphor. So all of the skills then have to fit within relating with another person. And it can make that relating a lot easier, a lot smoother, a lot more effective, increase the quality of their experience with you, make their lives better, your life better, etc. But it's still relating. And these are not skills that you hold out in front of you so that you don't have to relate to something. Like, rapport is not a skill that you slap on so that you don't have to relate to somebody. Eliciting states and anchoring them is not something that you do to people so that you don't have a good relation, so that you don't have to relate. You know, these are things that can enhance the quality of the relationship, but it's within the frame of relating with people. And then, in order for you to get good at it, they have to become natural. So the skills have to be rehearsed and practiced enough that they are natural, they're smooth. It's part of that natural relating of back and forth. Well, you should have outcomes for these things. You should, I can get rapport with virtually anybody in XYZ period of time, and you need to practice that until, you should have a clear, this comes back to well-formed outcome. You should have a clear evidence procedure. How will you know when you've gotten good at rapport? What will you see, hear, and feel once you know you can get rapport with a wide range of people? Who are the toughest people for you to get rapport with? And, how will you know when it's no longer that way? Criteria and values. You need to get good at eliciting those. This is mission critical for your business, your sales, your relationships. If you're selling somebody a product and you don't know what their criteria and values are, you're screwed. Because then how can you meet their criteria and values if you don't know what they are? If you're in a relationship and you don't know what their beliefs about what's most important in a relationship are, how can you fulfill them, right? How do you know if those beliefs are compatible with yours? This is essential for you to learn this. You must learn this. The anchoring piece, you got to learn. That is a skill set. Sleight of mouth, reframing. These things have to be practiced until they're integrative and natural for you. So I think that's it for today.